Today's episode of If We Ran Nintendo is brought to you by the amazing patrons over on Patreon. Let's kick it off with the gold standard members: Andrew Semichek, Brendan Myers, James Johnson, Ryan Turford, Coach Timbo, Sheldon Benedict, Hyrulean Julian. Then we move on to our platinum producers, the one, the only, the glorious one, Mr. Mark Moody. We finalize the diamond executive producers, Bobby Miller, Lee Navarro, Ted, Corey Hicks, and our newest patron, my cousin Dawn Becker. Thank you, Dawn. We really appreciate it. Now, Sean, let's get on to the episode.
If we ran Nintendo.
What is up, everybody, and welcome to episode 154 of If We Ran Nintendo. I am Bobby, the Nintendo Guru, joined by the greatest co-host in all the land, Mr. Sean Capri.
Bobby, it's the Friday. 'Twas the night before E3, before Sean flies on a jet plane, and he goes to Los Angeles. I'm coming into your country. I'm climbing up over the wall tomorrow, Bobby. So
That's amazing.
You just better be ready for the Capri penetration.
Oh God!
into the America.
Please
I heard how your president talks.
He doesn't have any problem. Well, he's only got a problem with your prime minister, but I don't think he minds Canada.
I think he admires him though. I think he thinks he's got a nice style to him at least.
Yeah.
He might not agree with his policies, but whatever, man. Who does?
He probably likes the fact that he's single.
That's true. No, he's not single. What do you mean he's not?
Oh, he's not
family
married,
man.
is he?
Yeah, he's a family man. He's got a beautiful
Is he?
family. Of course
I
he
thought
is.
he wasn't. Why did I think he wasn't married?
Because he's a model or he was a model before.
Yeah, possibly. I could care less about Canada. Who cares?
Yeah.
Well, you're the
fair
only
enough.
thing I care about in Canada.
I'm wearing a whole bunch of I got a Giants football sweater on. And I've got a San Francisco Giants hat on, Bobby. What do you think about that?
You don't match. And might I add, there's a lot of Canadians I like too, like Mark Carabin, Joel Brooks,
he's pretty good.
Tony Baker.
Rival.
I need to specify that because I don't want it to be like I'm racist. It's just
Did you hear when I forgot about all the Canadians from the patron? I was like, Mark Carabin knows what I'm talking about here. I'm like, is there any other Canadians? And then like after I finished recording, I was like, freaking Joel Brooks, freaking Rybo, like all these people. Like there's so many.
People.
Yeah, there's so
Good
many.
Lord.
Yeah,
Good Lord.
I'm a dumb. I apologize though, on the Discord
Whatever.
and on the post. Yeah, you don't care.
I don't care. Sean, let's kick this episode off like we do each and every episode with our
Geek outs,
shout-outs.
Bobby. I got new shoes for E3. I got blue shoes. You want to see? Look, I haven't even got the tags off yet. They're cool little blue shoes. I have to get like LA wear. It's gonna be hot, Bobby. It's gonna be like 28 degrees Celsius.
You shouldn't buy new shoes for all the walking you're gonna do.
They're nice shoes though. They're comfy.
That's just what
Should I do? I don't have good shoes, Bobby. What would you have me
Well,
do?
if you were gonna get them, you should have bought them and wore them for a week.
Can I tell you something? Can I tell you? I have had zero time to even think about this trip. Like, I had to print things off, like, in between meetings this morning, and I haven't packed or anything, and I've got to do, I shouldn't say I have to. Speaking of Geek Outs, last night we did an amazing crossover podcast with the Trophy Room and the Xbox Drive. It was so much fun. We did it at twitch.tv/Sean Capri, and it's available on both of our feeds. Tons of fun, but that was going to keep me from even thinking about the actual trip of E3. So I'm kind of panicked right now. I don't know if you can sense that.
So here's the thing. Joseph Moran and I are live streaming the Xbox conference.
Oh, dude. Okay, so did you weren't watching the stream last night?
No,
that's okay.
It started late, man.
I know it's late. It's fine. Don't worry about it. I'm not mad. But Bobby, the thing that I said there that I will promise to you guys is if they reveal a new Forza game and they drop a car down, like if they have some sort of car or vehicle thing happen for Forza, turn up your volume because I'm going to be screaming, "Bah!" so loud. We're going Xbox Drive. We got. Oh, did I tell you? Oh, there's another thing I'm geeking out about.
Oh my God, this is not the Xbox Drive.
Yeah, well, these are the Xbox Drive shirts, Bobby. I got shirts. Bobby, it's gonna be a good time. You guys so turn up your volume when they start talking about Forza at the E3, the Microsoft thingamajig. It's gonna be good, man. It's gonna be good. I'm geeking out about it pretty hard.
Okay.
I gotta take Lincoln to soccer tomorrow morning, and then 2 hours after that, I'm at the airport. Bobby, I'm so stressed.
So my first shout out.
Oh right.
I got two this week. So the first one goes to Adam Leonard. Today, he sent me a picture that he drew of Bill, my favorite animal in Animal Crossing.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so very nice. But I want to let you know something, Adam. Even though that was a very nice gesture to me, I still will not record my audio.
Damn.
Like, personally, for me and Toby.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to continue to record through the Skype recorder, and that's just the way it's going to be. You're going to have to deal. And I don't want to hear that you stop listening to us, because I will slap the hell out of you and never buy you lemonade again. With. He listens. He likes that episode.
Man, it got dark in here.
He likes that show.
That's shade that you're throwing over here.
There's no shade. Stop it. Stop it.
And
then the second shout out I have is for Dream Daddy Bobby, because
he's coming back.
He's coming back.
Nice.
Dream Daddy got announced for Switch, and I had promised people that if it comes to Switch, I will play it. And out of the shadows comes the Twitter handle Dream Daddy Bobby again, and he starts tweeting again. So it's going to be pretty awesome. It's going to be a lot of fun.
I love it. Remember, it freaked you out before. Remember, you didn't know anything about it. You didn't know there's actually a gentle person on the other side. You just thought it was a creeper.
Yeah, I just thought it was a creep, and it kind of freaked me out. And then when I found out who it was, I was like, oh, okay, it's no big deal. And then they got offended and stopped. Yeah. Or not offended, but he got upset because he upset me. And
it became a thing. It's kind of ruined the joke.
Yeah, it was just, it was a joke.
It was a great joke.
I took it the wrong way, though.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know what? You had a lot on your mind at the time.
Well, yeah, it is what it is. Another quick run of shout-outs real quick. I want to give a shout-out to Josh Thomas, Patrick McNamara, Nintendo Talk, oh my God, Rogers Base, Joe After Work,
Ryan
Turford, Josh, Ryan Turford,
Antonio Guillen.
Yeah,
man.
Dude, my dude, he just love that guy.
I'm with you.
I got Danny Ward from Switch Island, like everybody that was able to help me out. And I got 2 more episodes of the E3 predictions in the chamber. They will go Monday morning. I'm going to do one at like 7 o'clock in the morning, and then the other one's going to launch at noon. And then we're going to kick it off Tuesday. We're going to be coming with some stuff. But dude, these guys all just stepped up. Every single person that I asked to be a part of this E3, Justin Masson, he was the first one to do it.
Oh, dang. Yeah, that's right.
Every single person that got involved in this, just thank you guys so much, because you made this week spectacular for me. Like every single day I had another prediction show going up, and like people loved it. People were literally just like, these are the best episodes ever. Mm-hmm. Like, we're just getting to just listen to people, make predictions, and then we have full conversations about it. It turned out to be so much better than I thought. This will be something I do every single year from here on out. And I'm going to schedule it better. And I'm going to do, next year, I'm going to do 2 weeks solid every single day leading up to E3. Like, I'm just going to just hammer it down. So I can't wait for next year's E3. If we haven't got to this year's E3.
I'm glad, man. That's the kind of thing that makes me really upset, that people are really seeming to really enjoy that E3 might be going away. And it's like, you don't get this anymore. Like, yes, you might have everybody tuning in and you get all the YouTube views for a trailer like Death Stranding, but like you just remove such a huge pillar, like this thing where we all come together. I've ranted about this before, but this is a great example of, if you don't have E3, then like you're not doing those episodes. It doesn't pull people together in this joyous sort of way, which was always the spirit of it to begin with. And of course it brought, anyway, I don't want to go on a rant, but I'm glad you had great episodes, man. That is awesome. I'm glad people were enjoying them.
Yeah, they were so much fun. And it was nice to reconnect with people. Like, that's the thing about those type of episodes.
Yeah.
Is because you get to have people back on the show that you might not bring back as often as you have. And seriously, like, it was so amazing to sit down and record again with Antonio. Like, it's been it's been a long time.
2 years,
man.
maybe.
2 years almost.
Yeah.
And we just got right back, boom, just jumped right in, started going. Dude, it was so good, man. And he is so goofy and quirky.
Did we talk about his Death Stranding video that he did?
I didn't watch it yet, but
it's
you did
good.
Say how good it is.
Yeah,
I gotta watch it. I gotta watch it. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Nice.
So, Sean.
Yeah.
Last week.
Wait! Quick shout out!
Okay, go ahead.
N64 Josh and Hoshue Ponce have both reached out to me, and I think there's a high possibility that we're gonna high five in LA. So anybody else? I want to give a shout out to anybody else going to LA, and if we cross paths,
There's going to be a guy, I think, going to reach out to you. His
a
name
guy.
is Just Cliff.
Oh, sweet.
Please, if he reaches out to you, please go meet this kid.
I love it.
Last year, he messaged me, and he wanted to meet me and Jules.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Can I please meet you guys?" And I was like, "Yeah, man, no problem." And we set it up, and me and Jules were sitting there. He came over. He just come over, took a picture, took a selfie with us, shook our hand, said how much he liked what we do, and then he went his own way.
I love it. Oh my gosh.
He's in our Discord. He's a great
hit me
kid.
up.
Yeah. I told him the other day, he asked if I was going. I was like, "No, I'm not going." I said, "Sean's going." He's like, "Oh, I know." He's like, "Maybe he'll let me, I'm like, message him."
I'm a hugger. Watch out. I'm a hugger. Bobby knows this. I jump onto Bobby like a face hugger, like an alien.
Oh,
just
boy.
like arms and legs around his big juicy melon.
Yeah.
Give him a little kiss too, a little smooch on the cheek.
We're just gonna keep it. We're gonna keep
A lingering kiss. The lips.
We're gonna keep it PG.
Yeah, it's on the cheek.
Okay.
It's a French kiss on the cheek.
Okay. Good lord. Okay, so last week we introduced this new thing we're gonna do annually. So every year we're gonna do this thing. This will be the first year that we do it, and we decided we were going to build the Nintendo Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And it's so basically what we're doing is I brought 7 games. Sean should have brought 7 games.
I have 7 games.
Okay, well, I don't know because you forgot all about what we were doing. So
I already had it done.
you did not.
I
You were
did
so
have it
full.
done.
Well, you messaged me things like, "Should we do this?" I'm like, "Sean, the Hall of Fame." You're like, "Oh right,
Yeah.
yeah."
Well, you know what? While we're throwing shade back and forth, how about we talked about the thing that I was saying that we should be doing for the first episode of every month, but obviously forget about that as well. So whatever, man. It's all good.
You know what? Don't start your nonsense.
I love you. I'm tired and I'm stressed. I'm sorry. Let me walk that back a little bit.
You better walk it back.
Oh, take it easy.
Okay, so essentially, we both have 7 Nintendo games.
I don't have anything. I'm just kidding. I'm not prepared.
I'm sure, of course, you have.
I have it.
And then two people to come, and then we're gonna basically give our nominations, and then talk through like why we nominate them, why they should be there, why they shouldn't be there, whatever it might be, and then kind of come down to a 5. So 5 games will get entered. 1 person gets entered.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the other caveat was it had to be a game that was 5 years removed. So it has to, after it's launched, 5 years later, it can then get nominated to go into the Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just a little bit more difficult than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
Because I was trying to keep it strictly Nintendo games.
Yep. Same here. I have a question mark around 1 that I want to ask you about.
Yeah.
But we'll get into it.
And I think moving forward, like as we get a couple years in or whatever, we might be able to go like, hey, if this game is a Nintendo exclusive, or this game at the time was a Nintendo exclusive, then, can we utilize it or whatever? Like what I'm thinking is like, what if we were like, hey, Castlevania?
Mm-hmm.
Like at the time, those were Nintendo exclusives. Should they be eligible? And we can move forward as we, as we go forward. But this year, I felt like it has to be all Nintendo stuff.
Yep.
Coming out the gates. Let me ask you a question, because if this was a true Hall of Fame, I think of like the WWE when they do their Hall of Fame, and they have a big presentation, and they show it on WWE Network.
Yeah.
Who would you think should host
the
award show, like the Hall of Fame ceremonies?
I'm tempted to say Reggie at this point.
You think?
But I don't know.
Well,
but I don't know. He's not. He's not like as He's not as like jovial as I think he might want a host to be. But that's like the first thing that came to mind as like a legacy that he could continue that on. But like he had that was such a weird way about him that like he shouldn't have been able to do really anything that he was tasked with doing and capture an audience. But he still managed to do that. So I'm not entirely sure. Did you have somebody in mind?
Only thing I thought was like, I don't know, man. My first thought was like Kevin Hart, but then I didn't know.
Oh, like not a Nintendo person.
Not a Nintendo person.
Oh, okay,
like
okay.
anybody. You know what I mean? Like now the WWE does it, and they have like Jerry Lawler do it, and then but
Right, that's kind of what I was thinking with this one. Yeah.
But like I don't know that there's anybody. I mean, maybe Bill Trinan.
That's exactly what I was thinking, actually.
Like Bill Trinan would probably be the best to do it. And maybe that's who that would probably be the best way to go because he's kind of funny. And he's got some comical stuff that he does, but he's also serious as well. He might be the best one to do it, actually.
Maybe Bobby the Nintendo Guru should host it.
Oh, please. You don't want me hosting it.
Maybe. You know who actually who would be good?
Technically, I am hosting it. So
there you go. Yeah, right now. Jimmy Fallon would be pretty good at it.
He would be good. He would be really good.
That Switch reveal was pretty good, man.
He's kind of in Nintendo's back pocket. So yeah. Because that's true.
That's my answer.
All right. So how do you want to read your list, and then if I have a game on that list as well, I'll say I have that game, and then we can kind of discuss why that deserves to be on there.
Sure. Yeah, we can kind of go one at a time.
I was going to say, do you want to work through the entire list first and then go why we think it should be on there, or should we just...
Well, let's give like a quick pitch maybe for each game, and we can you can kind of go like, no, I think that game sucks ass, which I'm sure you're going to do.
Probably. So what's the first game on the list?
Okay, well, the first one, I want to start with actually what I think is maybe one of the weaker ones. So we'll start here. And okay, so before I even start, what I wanted to do is look at the games that not only were some of the best in the catalog, but changed the trajectory for video games in at least a certain way. Yeah. And so with that, I would say that I want to start with GoldenEye 64, because my argument for that is that before Halo, before we were really doing anything first-person shooter, GoldenEye 64 proved that first-person shooters, which were generally seen only on PC at the time, was not only doable, but in a lot of cases, people preferred that. Yeah. And it also meant that you could take a license and turn it into an amazing game as well. 4-player split screen. I think to this day, it has some of the best difficulty settings in terms of cranking up how hard the enemies are, what it does to your health, and then adding objectives to it is like so tied in and integral to the James Bond experience. It doesn't run very well, but I don't think that matters when you're looking at when you're talking about a Hall of Fame entry. I think it's the impact that game, or in athletes, what impact they had in their time, in their era. Like you wouldn't look at like Bobby Orr and go like, well, he would suck against hockey players today. Like that's not really how. So I wanted to kind of like lay that out there to I think it will allow other games that maybe don't hold up as well against other games today, but they were so important that they need to be recognized in this Hall of Fame.
And I think to kind of ride off what you're saying, like the idea is that what the person does, like a Bobby Orr, what players do today might never do if Bobby Orr didn't show
good call
what to do. Mm-hmm. So it's very similar in thinking. I also have GoldenEye on my list.
Okay.
Because I felt the same. Like I took my list the same way. Mm-hmm. I took my list to say like, what are games that not all of them do this, but like, what are the games that revolutionize gaming? Which are the games that like put Nintendo on the map for a particular reason? And at that time, there were no shooters on a Nintendo console or on any console, really. I mean, you had Doom and such, but there wasn't like
natively built for it.
Well, but what I want to say is like you had Doom in terms of like the first person, the first player, the single player campaign, but it wasn't a shooter type thing where you had 4-player split screen and you were kind of going at it and doing your thing. GoldenEye, to me, this is me personally, and this is why I feel like what I'm doing with this list shows how much I took this serious.
Yeah.
I hate GoldenEye.
Yeah. Well, that's what I really expected you to shoot this one down.
Sick to my stomach. I literally had a splitting headache for hours. I couldn't touch, and that was the first sign that you can't play first-person shooters. But I know what this game means to so many people and what it did for Nintendo at the time. And it was one of those games that, like, when it hit, people were looking at Sony like, well, you don't have anything like this.
True enough.
On the PlayStation 1. So I'm with you on this one. I think it, deserves a go.
Okay, we'll see how it stacks up, because I feel like that was one of the weaker ones, but we'll see how it goes.
What is your next game?
The next one that I have is one that I don't necessarily like, similar to you. Like, I don't really have a whole lot of love for this, but I don't know how you have a list or an entry into a Hall of Fame without a game like Super Smash Brothers Melee on there.
Okay.
And then I picked the first one. I think I was trying to remind myself of like the rules that we had. I think it was like 2 generations, or did we pick 1 generation gap? So it can't be anything on Switch, and it can't be anything on Wii U, I believe. I can't remember if we did 2 generations or not. But even if that were the case, so that has.
I thought we changed it at one point to just go 5 years.
Or 5 years. Okay, yeah. So even that, but I felt like that was going to have some implications on a Mario Kart game as well.
Yeah.
But so Super Smash Brothers Melee is something that I sort of like put forward, but I don't know, man. Like, I think it's super important, and I think the achievement of all of the different franchises and somehow making it like work, not only from a licensing standpoint, but from a gameplay standpoint, people loved it and changed fighting tournaments like Evo and got Nintendo on that stage, I think is pretty important. And then it also made PlayStation try and chase that flame as well, and they failed tremendously at it. So for those reasons, I think it deserves to be an entry.
I feel like this was not on my list, and I feel like I'm probably going to catch a lot of hate for this, but my feeling with that is it didn't revolutionize fighting games.
Yeah,
it made them more accessible. Yes, it showed that you could have fun fighting games rather than a serious fighting game. It made it more of a party game. It took a fighting genre and made it party, but it also allowed it to be serious as well. So, and I know what it means to so many people. Like, Melee to this day is still one of the games that people just, they lose their minds over. I know how important it is to Smash fans, but I don't feel like it's...
But this is if we ran Nintendo, I guess.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that it's a horrible game by any stretch of imagination.
Yeah, same here.
But I just feel like when I looked at my list and I was like, what are the games that changed everything for the genre or for whatever? I don't feel like Smash changed the genre. Now, I could be wrong, and that's probably debatable, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
but I feel like when you look at like Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat, and Killer Instinct, like, there was so many fighting games at that time, but I feel like Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat have been the ones that kind of set the bar and the tone. And then, don't get me wrong though, Smash is like a juggernaut in terms of fighting games, but I don't feel like Melee was that game that did that.
Well, and I would have said the exact same thing at the same time that you just said that, but pairing those two against each other and kind of doing a bit of a comparison and going, yes, Street Fighter 2 and Mortal Kombat set the bar. It was taking the arcade experience and giving it in your home. Like, that's something that we hadn't seen before. So that was a revolutionary time in and of itself. But when you look at what Smash Brothers did compared to that, because at the time we're looking at Killer Instinct, Street Fighter 2, Tekken, Virtual Fighter, they're all the same. They're all like, you pair 2 guys up against each other and they all had a Ryu kind of character, or Jago, or like they always had a ninja guy, and they always had like archetypes that were very, very similar. And then you take this and you go like 4 players with your friends and Mario's beating the crap out of Kirby, and that's the way it should be.
Yeah.
So I don't know, like I'm back and forth on this, because I think it did change what became a very dry offering in the fighting industry, and you just infuse it with that Nintendo magic.
Yeah.
So I could see. Let's see where we go with this. I'm not gonna. Okay. I'm not really gonna like put my neck out too much for Smash, to be honest with you. But I feel like we should probably have like a pretty respectable push for it. But I'm not gonna fight you about it. I'll fight you about Image and Form, for God's sakes.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what else we have, and then we'll see what rises to the top.
All right.
What's the next game you have?
Okay, the next one that I have is now we're into my top 5, and this one is it's irrefutable. Wii Sports is one of the most important games to ever hit video games in the history of mankind. Whether or not you think that is great, but it meant that my entire family was down in my basement, crammed in there. There's 6 of us, plus like friends and girlfriends and whatever at the time. And my dad I'll never forget this as long as I live. He thinks the technology is so good it can actually measure his other hand. So when we're playing tennis, he's got the ball in his hand, he's miming, he's like cradling in his hand, and he throws it up and he does a perfect spike. And then he's like waddling around like he's the little me character playing tennis and stuff. that is one of the games that just it expanded the audience. And it was a good game. It wasn't it wasn't like Candy Crush expands the audience because it's just this addicting, totally, it's after people's addiction. It was genuinely like innovative. It was fun. It was whimsical. And it was something that we'd never seen before. And then it sold 100 million copies. So there's that.
Well, the thing for me is, and why it's on my list as well.
Yeah.
I feel like it revolutionized gaming. It changed it. It brought motion controls into gaming. It did something different. It took a generation that PlayStation and Xbox should have owned Nintendo.
HD, man.
And they didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Nintendo Wii crushed them both. Like, just put them on their rear end and was just like, stay. We're just gonna trounce you right now.
Might have been one of the last killer apps. Might have been one of the last things where you go like, I want this system for this one game. Yeah, and that was worth it.
And for me personally, I was out. I was out of video games. I was done. I played Wii Sports at my brother's house, and that was it. I was back, big bad way. I went out and got a Nintendo Wii just for that game, and then fell in love with Galaxy and Twilight Princess and all the amazing games that were on the Wii. And so for me, I feel like, yes, it deserves to be on the list.
Which, those other games, by the way, are not on my list for this. Like, I think that just shows. And I'd be very curious to see what people have to say about some of these picks and what their own picks would be for an initial offering into a Hall of Fame. Because I think it's important, too, that in and of itself, it's not just which games will end up in a Hall of Fame, which we'll get to next year. Like, this is the first go. I think it's important for that to be special.
I think the first year has to be game changers, revolutionary. You know, like when I look at past Hall of Fames, and I reference to WWE just because it is what it is. But the first year that they had the Hall of Fame, Andre the Giant went in.
Yeah.
Because he revolutionized the sport.
Yeah.
The first year that NASCAR did it, Dale Earnhardt went in. He revolutionized the sport. So it's like, it's something I feel like is something that like just changes the trajectory of everything. So what is your next game you have?
This one I'm not sure. Actually, the next two I've got question marks on. So I don't know if I can count this as one game or if it's worth splitting this into two. But Pokemon Red and Blue is my next offering. I think this created an entire generation of gamers.
Yeah.
It revolutionized what you could do on a Game Boy. This was something where, well, actually that aspect I want to walk back just a little bit. The trading was revolutionary, but you were playing multiplayer stuff on Game Boy before that with Tetris, kind of right out of the gates. But the two SKUs is so different. The two things where like I got blue and you've got red, and then we've got to trade together because there's some that were only available on mine versus yours.
Yeah,
it kickstarted an entire industry. There's a whole company around it, and it's still here 30 years later or whatever it's been, 25 years or something crazy like that.
Yeah.
So again, like this is something that I wish that I had more of an affinity to, but I got Lincoln pointing out Pikachu, and then Chelsea was out at Walmart earlier today, and he sees a Pikachu stuffy, and he goes, Pikachu? And how do you not buy? He goes, please, Pikachu? So now we watched the Pokemon Direct together, and he's just like, he's loving it, man. So this is something that persists and has a lot of stamina. So I think we have to. I think about, I wanted to make sure that Game Boy was also represented in some way. So that's why Pokemon Red and Blue are on my list.
I think to a degree, I think you're right. I think that is a game that, like you said, created a generation. I remember when you and I had this conversation, and I said to you, I feel like the Switch is going to do amazing because of the fact of, at the time you were doing We the Gamercast, and every single person that was a Sony fan or a Kind of Funny fan kept, when you talk to them, they all, their gateway drug into gaming was Pokemon.
Big time.
And I kept saying to you, like, man, if all these Kind of Funny people get a true Pokemon game on the Switch, they're all buying Switches.
Oh, big time.
Like, they're all coming over. And they all have, for the most part. So, yeah, I think you're pretty spot on with that one.
Yeah, thanks.
What's your next game?
Okay. So this, to your point about it being a Nintendo game, I think maybe at the time it was Nintendo. Tetris is one of the most famous games on the planet. I just don't know if this counts. I guess I could have looked this up, but because like it's not still owned by Nintendo. I don't know if that disqualifies it, but it was so synonymous with the Game Boy, and so like that's what you thought about. Like everybody, I think there's a picture of Hillary Clinton playing Tetris on Air Force One or something in back of the day. That might be a totally made up reference, but everybody was playing Tetris. It's one of the best puzzle games of all time, and I gotta push it forward, man. How can you not? But is it disqualified? And
I
if
have
it
it
is,
on my list too.
yeah, okay. So I had a backup of Dr. Mario, but
And the reason why I put Tetris on my list was for the simple fact of, again, when that game launched, nobody was buying a Game Boy for Tetris. It came packed in. It was like, what is this game? I don't care about this game. But then everybody fell in love with it. And it was a game that moms and grandmoms were buying a Game Boy to play.
yeah,
And I feel like when you have stuff like that, it is revolutionary. Now, at the time, Nintendo didn't own the game. They still don't own the game. It is owned by a Russian man, and it's licensed out. That might have changed at this point, but at that time, the creator had the license, and there was a dispute because he said he had the license, someone else said they had the license. Because I remember when it hit the Game Boy, also Tengen, which is also Atari, put it on the NES on a cartridge, and it was started this big dispute and this big lawsuit.
Right.
Nintendo wound up beating them and shutting down that game. But so at that time, it was a console exclusive. It was a Nintendo exclusive. So I think that it essentially should kind of get a look. So we'll go there.
yeah, I think so too. And that's yeah, I don't have anything else to add there.
Okay. What's your next game?
Next one I have is A Link to the Past. We're starting to get into it. I needed a Super Nintendo game, and for me, I mean, I think the tricky part is, and maybe you felt the same way as you're going through. I'm like, I could fill this top 5 with like the best 5 Mario games, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like the same could be said about Zelda. So for me, A Link to the Past over the original Link, I think it's just a stronger game. It could be argued that in its time, the original Zelda might have been like it really was revolutionary. But I think A Link to the Past, when it launched, people recognized that as a better, more accessible, more fun, more thought out game, fleshed out game than the original was at its time. It's a very difficult thing to really evaluate. But I think there's some things detracting the original Legend of Zelda from being the initial offering in the Hall of Fame.
So, okay, I have the original Zelda.
I figured you might.
list,
Yeah.
and I don't have Link to the Past on my list. And Link to the Past is my favorite Zelda game of all time. So the way I looked at it was, without the original Zelda, Link to the Past doesn't happen.
I mean, yeah. Okay, so that's going to play with my next one, too. Okay.
So when I looked at it, I was like, at the time, that game was revolutionary. That game was the first true open world game. That game was, it created so many trends that so many games copied to this day. There are so many things that franchise, which got kickstarted with that original game, just copies. It was the first action RPG to some degree. It did so many things so well. It didn't hold your hand. It just let you go loose. You could jump into the 8th dungeon by mistake rather than the first dungeon. Not necessarily that, but you know what I'm saying. Like you could start to take some of the dungeons out of order if you so chose. There was so many secrets and mysteries. I feel like, as much as I love Link to the Past, I feel like with A Link to the Past, it starts our trend of very formulaic.
Yeah.
Meaning, you need the hook shot to beat this level, and you need the boomerang to beat this level, you need the arrows to beat this level.
Well,
that wasn't.
That's
like
a bad
that
thing for you to bring up. I think that's the thing, is that really set the tone for a number of games, which is sort of part of our criteria here. Is that thing landed on something new that set the formula for many, and whether or not you like that formula, that's maybe one thing or another. But the fact that it had that kind of influence on how many games going all the way into a transition into 3D. That's part of it.
Well, yeah, but I think that like it became very hand-holding.
Yeah.
And that's not when I look at the originals, and it became very hand-holding because Zelda 2 was so difficult.
Yeah.
That Nintendo tried to rein it back in.
Oh, for sure.
And then sadly, it was just a matter of when they did the next one. Well, after Link to the Past, they went to 3D, Ocarina and Majora's Mask, but they've never gone back. Well, the handheld ones did go back.
I think with A Link to the Past, they discovered that it was endearing, that Zelda and Link had endearing characteristics to them, whereas the first game, everything was pretty dire. It was a pretty it was a pretty difficult land, and the game itself was very difficult, but things started to become a little bit more whimsical, I think, with the next one. And I think between the first one and then by the time I got to Super Nintendo, the TV series started to come out, and you started to think about like how fantastical all of this stuff was. And I think that got a little bit more fleshed out. But I'm not fighting you too hard on this one, because I think you make a good point that there is I wanted to make sure that Super Nintendo was represented on this list, and without this game, I don't have that. And whether or not that is hugely important, that's up for discussion as well. Because I do not have a Super Nintendo game for the next one, and I would argue that there's actually 2 games in a Mario series before I would go to the Super Nintendo.
Okay, so what do you have? One more game?
I got one more game.
Okay, and I'm assuming I'm assuming you're going to go Mario 3.
I am. And I had Mario. I originally typed out Super Mario 1, and I thought man, things really ramped up with 3. Yeah. The character of Mario, the way that we know him of like his visual representation is Mario 3. It's not Mario. It's not the side sort of like blocky looking Super Mario. What we know of Mario and the way that everybody has such an affection for him is based, I think, on Mario 3 and beyond. They made a movie out of this thing. I would argue that it's the best of the Mario brothers, and I think that has something to do with it. However, if you were to tell me that Mario 1 is the one that we have to go with, again, I'm not going to... That one is it's difficult to argue that. What I'm also considering in all of this is, what is the mix of games? Are we just looking at the first of everything? Because then, like, why didn't we have, like, Metroid in there, and then the whole thing becomes a bunch of NES games.
I don't think it needs to be the first. I have the original Mario on my list, and this is why. The original Mario is the first game I even wrote down.
Yeah, same here.
Because if I was being true to this Hall of Fame, my feeling would be the first year you only put one game in. And then you start to build your library after that. But it doesn't make a good podcast if we only did one game.
Yeah, and I do feel like I'm pouring a little bit more of my preference into this more than anything. I think that is the truest answer.
My thing is this, and maybe I just have a different perspective because I was older when that game launched. That game saved gaming.
Yeah.
Super Mario turned the downward spiral of gaming in the United States back upwards. That game changed everything. And without Mario, there's no Nintendo, there's no gaming today. I feel like Mario is the house, Mario's the house that Nintendo built. And it's basically, it's the house of Mario, and that's all it is. And everything is predicated upon Mario. And without the original, there's none of this. We don't even have this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And
where's Donkey Kong land in any of this? Do you have Donkey Kong on your list?
I don't. I have Donkey Kong Country, and we'll get into that when it's my turn to go. But like, for me, I think about, in my mind, Donkey Kong's an arcade game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But I mean, it's a Nintendo arcade game. I mean, I'm kind of doubting myself on this one.
Listen, I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is Donkey Kong did not drive the NES.
Yeah.
That original Super Mario Brothers drove the NES. It took what we knew at the time of gaming, which was the Atari 2600, and just turned it on its side. Mm-hmm. And it was just like, this is the be-all, end-all.
Yeah.
And this is the game that so many games today try to emulate and try to be like. And when you look at platforming games, there is no better game than a Mario game.
Yep.
Like, spot on platforming skills. Like, it is insane.
Yeah, and right out of the gates too.
Yes.
That's the thing. We look at other games that
stop on a dime.
Yeah.
You could stop on a dime. Your jumping had to be precise all the time.
Mm-hmm. Secrets.
So amazing. Yes. For me, if I was actually doing
I'm not gonna fight you on this. I think if I were to really look at it, if I'm trying to really visualize what a ceremony would look like in Super Mario 1, isn't there, that might be a little weird.
Yeah.
That might be a little weird.
I'll go back to what I was saying originally. I'll just repeat myself here real quickly. If I was doing a Hall of Fame starting from scratch, it would be one game. That would be the game. Year over. The next year, we build off of that. That's just my opinion. That's how important to me.
Yep.
I feel this game is, not just to Nintendo, to video games.
Mm-hmm.
Because, again, without that game, the industry is dead.
Yeah.
Because that just turns everything back around. So, the only games that I have on my list, I've got 3 games on my list that you didn't have on your list. Mm-hmm. So we'll start with the original Super Mario Kart. And I don't even think I think that just basically revolutionized karting games. It's not a big game. It's the last one on my list, so it's really not an important one on mine.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought, we need to have a mix of games in here.
I'm with you.
But I don't. As I'm listening to your list and I'm looking at my list, I don't even think this game belongs on the list.
Yeah, it's tricky. Well, we'll show it a little bit of love in that, it instantly created a genre and then also kept all other oncomers out.
Yes.
It was fueled by the power of Mario and the Mushroom Kingdom, and there was no chance for anybody to even come close to this.
Yeah.
Instantly, in one game, it was the same. You could say the same thing about Mario Kart that you could say about Super Mario, in that nobody else, even after multiple tries, working at it, after game after game, after years and years and years of development, nobody can touch Mario's platforming. Nobody can touch Mario's karting. So I think it is an important game. I'm glad you brought it up because it's definitely worth. It's part of the discussion. We're talking about 5 games, really.
Yeah, that's hard. That's what makes it hard, man.
Mm-hmm.
The next game, I already said it. Donkey Kong Country.
Yep.
The original. And the reason why that one to me is so important to gaming is this introduced, when we thought that the Super Nintendo was dead, when Nintendo was talking about an N64 at the time, an Ultra 64, when Sony was coming on the scene and starting to talk about polygonal gaming and all that stuff, Nintendo threw this game out called Donkey Kong Country, and it blew everybody away. Mm-hmm. The graphics, the music, everything was
the revival of Donkey Kong.
It brought Donkey Kong back.
Mm-hmm.
It made it like a household name. It made Rare a household name.
Exactly, that's what I was gonna say. They trusted this relatively unknown studio in the middle of nowhere, really.
Yeah.
Have Donkey Kong.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
This is one of my favorite games, and you guys know this about me. And Donkey Kong Land was my main touch point with because we never had a Super, but I had a Game Boy, man, and my green Game Boy and my yellow case for Donkey Kong. Lincoln and I were just at the mall. And we looked. There's a retro store there, and I don't know, man. Something just came over me. I was walking by and I looked and saw they had all 3 Game Boy games, and they're all yellow. And I just looked over. I'm like, Lincoln, look, that's Donkey Kong Land. And I just had this that was really special to me, when I was a kid. And it doesn't mean anything to him, but it was just this, damn, that was it brought me back instantly. And it was a special moment, man. I don't know why. It's just a silly little thing, but I looked at that cart and I had a little Nintendo nostalgia.
Yeah. The final game that's on my list that you didn't have is Super Metroid.
Yep.
And there is no doubt in my mind that this game belongs in the Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
This game has created a genre that when they coined the phrase Metroidvania,
right, of course,
my feeling is shut up with the Vania part, because that's not Castlevania. Castlevania is 1, 2, 3, 4. There was so many Castlevanias before. They took the Metroid style and implement it into Castlevania.
Mm-hmm.
What Nintendo created with Metroid, how many games today, indie game after indie game after indie game, everything is Metroidvania style.
Yeah.
And you don't have a Vania style without the Metroid. And it is, to me, one of the most important game, because here's the thing. You played the original Metroid, it was so incredibly hard, so incredibly mind-numbing how difficult that game was.
But atmospheric as well.
Oh, yeah, definitely. But then you look at the second one, and to me, the second one is the one that really pushes what it learned on the first
Big time.
to a different level. Mm-hmm. And it just takes the music up a level, takes everything up a level. And to me, when you think and you talk to people that are huge fans of Metroid, 99% of them point to Super Metroid as the gateway drug to them and what got them in. Nobody ever talks about the original Metroid. They might talk about a couple of Metroids and they might talk about Prime and all that stuff, but like the original Metroid, Super Metroid, to me is the one that starts, stops, the story is there, and that's where it is. So at this point, I think we should do our games and get the games knocked out before we move into the people. But on my list, and I'll just throw this out there, on my list, I feel like there's 4 that are musts to go in. I feel like the original Super Mario is a must to go in. I feel like the original Legend of Zelda is a must to go in.
Yep.
I feel like Super Metroid is a must to go in. And I feel like GoldenEye is a must to go in. But I don't know how you feel about that, and I don't know from your list if you feel like anybody else.
So the things that are left off. So I was sort of checking off like the things that we both had, and the things that are that we both had that are now left off are Tetris and Wii Sports. So I think I'm actually. I wonder about GoldenEye versus any of those. So the ones that you mentioned, Zelda, Mario, Super Metroid, I think are indisputable. Especially the Super Metroid starting a genre that would last forever, and I mean they named the damn thing after it. Nobody's necessarily really doing that with GoldenEye. I think Tetris is probably more important than GoldenEye.
But I would argue,
man,
but wait a minute.
Tough.
But here's the thing: Tetris, as big as it is, I personally would argue that Pokemon is more important than Tetris.
Damn. Yeah, this is difficult. This is really tricky. And what is like emblematic of Nintendo? I think maybe Pokemon that has an edge there. You think and you continue to think of Nintendo and Pokemon having that symbiotic relationship. There is no getting away from one or the other. Whereas Tetris obviously went off and they did their own thing. So maybe with an initial offering, that might be one thing that kind of disqualifies Tetris. And I'd be on board with that. That's why I sort of had an asterisk at the start with it.
And to be legitimate, like Tetris is not a Nintendo game.
Right.
They licensed it, and anytime it's ever been on a Nintendo console, it's been licensed or it's been another company bringing it over. Like you had Puyo Puyo Tetris, that wasn't Nintendo, that was Sega. You know, that Sega brought it over. Ubisoft had it for a while. Like it's like every couple of years someone buys the license and licenses it out. I don't even know who owns Tetris 99.
I know who did 99 exactly.
I don't know. So for me personally, I would say Tetris is okay to leave off.
Okay.
But I feel like Pokemon Red and Blue is probably the replacement for that one.
Okay, so we now agree on Zelda 1, Mario 1, Super Metroid, Pokemon, which is 1, 2, 3, 4. So to choose on the 5th one, it's between Wii Sports and GoldenEye.
Okay.
I think tough, for me, one is pretty clear. I think Wii Sports edges it out. Because it was Nintendo still. I think all of these things, aside from maybe Pokemon, like GoldenEye was Rare. Rare has moved on. There's all that weird stuff about. I think Wii Sports was more integral in Nintendo's success and ongoing success than GoldenEye. That might be the only thing that edges it out. Even though I probably played GoldenEye way more. I think a lot of people probably played Pokemon or GoldenEye way more. This is a tough one though.
So let's put a pin in it. For real quick, so I want to throw another wrinkle to it. I agree with what you're saying. I wouldn't take GoldenEye. I feel like Wii Sports is probably there, except against Smash.
Yeah.
And I just don't know. Because my thing is like when I look at it, I go, I know what Wii Sports did, I know what it created, I know what it did for Nintendo, but also at the same time, when you look at Melee and what that has done for the competitive scene for Nintendo, it's changed the way Nintendo looks at competitive. They never looked at competitive until Smash came back with Smash 4 on the Wii U. And now with Ultimate, like that's
But it didn't sell systems to the degree that Wii Sports did. Like I think that might be the one thing. I obviously know the answer to that is obviously no.
Let's be fair. If Wii Sports was not a pack-in game, would it have sold as many games? And we don't know that answer.
That is tricky. You're right, because they would have to then go buy Wii Sports afterwards. But the argument that I'm trying to make, I think, is that yes, I think they probably would have, because everybody who bought a Wii did it because they played Wii Sports at somebody else's house and they're like, I want to go get that. So whether or not it was a packing game or not, I think they probably would have sold. I think they would have sold very well, astronomically well.
Because when you look at like Wii Sports Resort, that didn't sell as much as Brawl.
Well, it was done then. That's the thing, is that maybe is the argument against this, is that Smash Brothers created something that was ongoing and persistent, whereas Wii Sports was the right game at the right time for a moment, and then that's kind of it. Thing.
When you look at it, like when I look at the two games, I look at the one that created something that has pushed the envelope today. Like they just put out that number that like now I know we're not talking Smash now, but like you look at the amount of you look at the attach rate, right? And Wii Sports isn't even talked about anymore. So to me, when you look at it as and Smash on the N64 isn't the game to me that pushes it to what it is. It's Melee. It's very similar to Super Metroid in my mind. Where it pushes it to the next level and everybody raises expectations.
Well, that was my argument for Super Mario 3, but that's water under the bridge. I don't want to go back there, but because the argument that you had back, which I think is a strong one, is that we don't have that one unless we have that first one. But that first one in Mario and Zelda's case, those are masterpieces. I'm not sure that anybody's really looking at Smash for the 64 and going like, that's a masterpiece.
No.
The other wrinkle that I'll add to this is, quick, right off the top of your head, who made Wii Sports? Who's the person responsible for Wii Sports?
I don't know.
Who's the household name who's responsible for Smash? Everybody knows.
Sakurai.
Everybody knows Sakurai. It created a career for this guy, and he made him a household name. So not only the game itself, but the person behind it.
And
that
here's the other
might be
thing
worth
too.
recognizing.
And I think this is why Melee is the game that it is in my mind, is because there's tournaments today. 15, 20 years later, that they're still playing Melee.
Yeah, they forego the other games that have come out since then. Yeah,
it'll play Brawl. Yeah. And when Smash 4 came out, there was arguments of which one was better. And now Ultimate's out, and now there's arguments of which is better, Ultimate or Melee.
I know,
I feel like Melee is always in the mix. And so for me, I would say Melee.
I'm surprised by this, because I felt like I was sort of like, I was feeling almost a little silly of bringing Smash to the table on this one, but I think when we look at the other games and we go, these are no-brainers, then it clarifies things a little bit. This is a great, man, that's a good topic. This is fun.
Yeah, that was good.
Okay, so do you want to quickly recap for the people not writing this down in front of them?
Yeah, so we'll recap. So the first game to go in, Super Mario Brothers, the original one on the NES. Second game, Legend of Zelda, the original one, NES. The third game, Super Metroid on the Super Nintendo. The fourth game, Pokemon Red and Blue on the Game Boy. And then the fifth game, final game, Smash Melee on the GameCube. And the thing is we have I think we have a good representation of consoles as well.
I agree.
Which is nice.
Yeah.
I mean, like we have the NES, we have the Game Boy, we have the Super Nintendo, and the GameCube. I think it's a good representation of Nintendo, so I do too. Now, let's talk people.
Okay.
I brought two. You brought two. Yeah.
Are we going with one then?
We got to pick one.
Okay.
Out of the two. I'll read mine and then we'll discuss.
It'll be interesting.
So, Iwata.
Oh.
I have Iwata on my list. I feel like what this guy did for Nintendo, he did a couple of firsts. Number one, he was the first non-Nintendo family member to be a president. Up until that point, every single president of Nintendo was a Yamauchi. And he was the first one that wasn't. And he come in, he creates, he's the president while the Wii and the DS are there. Two of the most successful consoles in Nintendo's history. He comes back, he flops on the Wii U, stumbles out the gates of the 3DS, and as a true hero, he takes a pay cut rather than fire or lay off people. And then he is the architect of the Switch. And there's stories, he's on his deathbed kind of orchestrating what Zelda's going to become, what Odyssey's going to become, what the Switch is going to be. And there's also stories of him as president literally doing his presidential duties during the day and then going and programming for Smash Melee at night, and fixing the code for that. There's also storied tales of Earthbound was an absolute train wreck. He goes in, he meets with Itoi and says to Itoi, I can take your code, I can fix your code, and it's going to take me 3 years to get the game where it needs to be, or you can let me rewrite the entire game and I'll have it done for you like in a year and a half, 2 years. And like the guy was a genius in my mind. And I feel like it'd be a good place to have him in there. Did you not have Iwata on your list?
No. I think did you have I had Miyamoto as one. I anticipated that's going to be on both.
Okay, yeah. So then Miyamoto is the next one. But do you want to talk about Iwata at all before I?
I can't. I feel like I can't wax poetic better than you can. I think I agree absolutely with everything. The nature of his character was undeniable. Yeah. And everything that he lived, breathed, and he was relatable as well. He did all of those things that you just said, and he also created the Nintendo Direct. Yeah. He changed the way that, for better or for worse, like he changed the direction of E3 that would go on beyond his passing, unfortunately. So man, he is a special individual in this, and I went a little bit more OG. That's the only reason that he was not one of my two.
So my other one's Miyamoto.
Of course.
And when you look at, when you just look at this list that we created of games.
Yep.
Super Mario Brothers, he created.
Yep.
Legend of Zelda, he created. Donkey Kong, he created. He had his hands on Metroid. He had his hands involved in Super Mario Kart. He had his hands involved in Smash. Everything. Like every single solitary thing that Nintendo did, he had his hands in. I feel like
he's the personification of Nintendo. You look at that man and you're like, that's if they didn't have their logo, you would just use his face instead. Yeah. Like you look at him and his brain is working on another level. He is so like he's the kind of guy who goes, hey, I really like this GoldenEye game, but at the end, just so that we make sure that people don't think that they're murdering each other in cold blood, show them in a hospital shaking each other's hands. Like he's a different character, and Nintendo is not what they are today without Miyamoto. He's the heartbeat of the organization.
I mean, I remember when the Wii came out, and they were, people can mock it and make fun of Wii music and stuff, but they made that game based off of Miyamoto. Because his love for music, they went and created that game wrapped around him.
Yep.
And I remember reading an article where they told Miyamoto, stop talking about your hobbies in public because that's the future of our games.
Yeah.
And we don't want the competition to copycat our stuff. And when you look at this man and what he created with Nintendo, like it's just mind blowing.
And no ego.
No ego.
And like
no
part of that
dude.
is the Japanese character.
Oh
I
yeah.
think.
Yeah.
But yeah, like that doesn't really apply either. I think because you can see Kojima, who puts his name across the front 15 minutes of the original Metal Gear Solid, and so he's all over the place. So I think that does make it special. I don't make it fun of Kojima, but I want to sort of create a bit of a juxtaposition comparing what happens with an auteur like Miyamoto versus Kojima.
The other thing I just want to tack on real quick is every single game that we play today, he's had his hands on.
Mm-hmm.
ARMS, Splatoon. Like, these are games that are people that he trained and taught. And he's taught these young kids the Nintendo way, more or less. He is the Walt Disney of Nintendo.
He really is. And he has people who get to work with him weeping in tears with pride. And he's inspired, again, not just generations of gamers, but generations of developers, and shown that you can have a good heart and a light heart and bring magic to video games and inspire kids and adults alike. I think that those are huge reasons. Not anything that... This is a difficult conversation because it sounds like I'm saying a lot to sort of bring Iwata down. And that's not really what I'm trying to do at all. But he did something different from the beginning, and he continues to do something different and find success in that. I just will always go back to, if you hit it out of the park your first at bat, holy crap, dude. Like, you haven't even started practicing yet. Yeah. And you're just like masterpiece after masterpiece after masterpiece. I think when we talk about an initial offering, an initial inductee, I think you have to go a little bit more OG than perhaps Iwata, but maybe we can leave that until the final decision.
I agree. What was your other?
Well, I think for me, Miyamoto was like, it was such a no-brainer, and then I was like, who else? If I'm thinking about like OG and how to, especially here in like North America, how do we participate with Nintendo, because there was a very purposeful and a lot of concerted energy put into the transition of Nintendo from Japan to America. And so my second person, I guess, that I was going to put forward was Arakawa, the first president of Nintendo of America and the founder of Nintendo of America. He set the bench for that original bench of executives to make huge decisions and shape the face of Nintendo that we all kind of like interacted with. He hired the people who were in charge of creating Nintendo Power. He brought over Donkey Kong. He had Howard Lincoln as part of his team. Like, he really shaped there's no Reggie without him. There's probably no Nintendo at E3 without that. Like, in terms of the promotional side, and then working with the retailers back in the day and making an NES in a market where everybody's giving up on video games. From a business standpoint, I think he played a key role, whereas Miyamoto played that same role, but more on the creative developing games. But you could argue that like it's kind of like a chicken and egg thing. Like, how do you sell the thing without the games, or how do you make the games without the thing, without an audience to buy the stuff? So it's tricky. But I wanted to give a bit of a shout out to the person who brought Nintendo to America. That's it.
Not bad. I think it's.
But like, it's how do you fight against Miyamoto? Like,
you can't. And I think, and it is the truth. I love Iwata. I literally cried when I found out he died.
Yeah, man.
But I feel like he's more of, in this particular situation, I feel like he's more of a sympathy vote than, like, the reason why I put him on there is because of his passing.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like if he was still alive today, I wouldn't even consider him against Miyamoto.
Yeah.
I would have just been like, it's Miyamoto all day long.
Yeah.
And I think the reason why, great, don't get me wrong, the accomplishments, the feats that he's done, it deserves. It's deserving of a Hall of Fame. And he'd probably be in the running again next year to go in. But for me, when I look at it, I go, Miyamoto, man, he was before Iwata.
Mm-hmm.
Untimely death. He's after Iwata. But, like, I don't know what he does per se today, but he's still touching. I mean, like, dude, he goes over and he works with Ubisoft and creates
exactly
Mario Rabbids.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Then they do Starlink, and he works with them a little bit for Star Fox. And it's like, the guy is just, he's doing the movie. He's working with the movie now for the Mario movie, and
that's the thing. He's got
he's got
chops
his hands
in
in everything.
all
dude.
those games are so dissimilar from each other. All the games that we talk about that he's touched on, totally different games. He's not making Smash for his entire life. He goes from Mario to Zelda, from Donkey Kong even before that. These are all hugely different games. So he and the music and everything else, and he's bringing his life experience. But I could go on and on about Miyamoto.
The thing of it is the thing of it is like when I originally said, he is the Walt Disney of Nintendo, and it is the truth. Mm-hmm. It is the God's honest truth. Without Miyamoto, there is no Nintendo. Mm-hmm. Without Mario, there is no Nintendo, and Miyamoto created Mario. So in my opinion, Miyamoto needs to go into first class.
That's good.
So we'll recap it one more time. Everything. The person of choice is Mr. Miyamoto.
The real reason you didn't go with Iwata is because his work on Kirby, though.
Why don't you stop it? I'm getting ready to recap, and you totally flubbed it on me.
I'm sorry.
The top of the list: Super Mario Brothers, the original; Legend of Zelda, the original; Super Metroid on the Super Nintendo; Pokemon Red and Blue; Smash Melee; Mr. Miyamoto. That is all, but we do have a special one more topic coming for those that are listening to us on Patreon. For $1 a month, you get an actual additional topic. This week, Lee Navarro, Mark Carabin. We felt like the topics were very similar, so we're going to use them. Lee Navarro, what one piece of gaming technology do you want to see be adopted by Nintendo for their next console? Mark Carabin, how, if at all, would you take advantage of AR for Nintendo's mobile game efforts in the future? Pokemon Go is an obvious example. Minecraft Earth is taking to the next level. Where could Nintendo take AR? So with that, if you're listening on Patreon, we're going to continue. If not, thank you guys for listening. Check out everything that Sean Capri is doing over on Twitter. Sean like Connery, Capri like the pants. Check me out, Instagram, Twitter, at Nintendo Gurus. Peace out, Preston.
Bye-bye, and play some Kirby video games like Kirby Smash, the golf ball game for the Super Nintendo.
Good Lord.
He hasn't even commented about it. He hasn't even said anything.
I'll say something. I'll see. He might. Who knows?
He doesn't.
He's
listen.
weird.
He doesn't. Listen.
He does. He does.
He probably cuts it off by the time he like. That is all.
By the time I hit that is all, he's like, okay.
He doesn't even know that I give him love every single week. My name is Toby, and I'd like you to play some video games.